New Mexico's House has been reopened to the public for several months now, but while people are allowed back in, starting soon, you'll have to leave your gun at home if you want to visit the Roundhouse. The Legislative Council voted this week along party lines to ban firearms from the Capitol building. The state Republican Party and gubernatorial candidate Rebecca Dow were quick to pounce on the decision, but Inez, many states instituted similar bans years ago, and we were really kind of late on this. Is this really an issue or just another political flashpoint?
I think it is a flashpoint, and I was actually a little disappointed that no Republican could vote in favor of keeping weapons away from lawmaking, especially in a time where you already had citizens, even if they were only armed with fire extinguishers or whatever they took to the Capitol on January 6th, who mobbed the Capitol. You've had what happened in Michigan where armed people went in threatening employees. And we had, mass shootings all over the country. It just doesn't make sense to bring in weapons when you're debating heated issues and discussing what's going on in our community. It seems like words are better weapons than guns.
People have a right to their fear, Inez. I mean, they have a right to it. If people feel threatened as an elected official, they have a right to feel that way and act accordingly. But Dan, I will ask this. Interesting. Critics of the decision point out that only members of that committee, and not the full House and Senate voted on this firearms ban. And do they have a point here? Should it have been something the entire legislature voted on?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the Legislative Council is the one that runs the Capitol. I mean, that's the people in charge with running the Capitol, right? It's just like in Washington, D.C. We heard a little bit about it, but all of that's run by the Speaker's office, right? And in New Mexico, it's run by Legislative Council. So we have these committees. You acquiesce bringing everybody together. I mean, the outcome. My feeling is the outcome would have been the same whether you had the full House or you had, the Legislative Council meeting. So, it is what it is. I'm not necessarily saying that I agree with it or disagree with it. I served up there for 10 years. I think this conversation about guns, and this is why I think we are incapable of having a legitimate conversation about guns in this country, is because everybody tends to lean to hyperbole, right? I mean, I was there 10 years. There was never a single scare with a weapon in the Capitol. Nothing. I mean, I got threatened to get beat up. I got threatened to get killed. I got spit on. I had multiple things happen when I was there. There was never a threat with a gun. And as a matter of fact, the only time I ever saw a gun outside of the state police was when we were dealing with the land grant stuff. Right. And the land grant guys would show up, and man, those dudes were packing. I mean, those they would. Right there, man. But they showed up packing, right? And so, I'm not sure what the message is. I never, in my 10 years up there, granted I've been gone a while, I never saw this, people walking around the Capitol with AR strapped to their backs and, packing the guns. I just think it's, another opportunity for us to escalate the conversation about guns. And it's definitely a flashpoint issue that people love to get excited about on both sides of the issue. And, I think it's going to lead to this next session. You're going to wind up with a ton of protests. You're going to have a ton of people trying to show up there with concealed carry weapons and permits and doing the things that are going to happen. Yeah, mark my words, it'll happen.
I just want to jump in really briefly. Please. There are people with guns now. That's the reason they did it. They wouldn't have to have this rule if we didn't have a bunch of people sitting while young children and mothers and other people in gun victim violences are testifying, staring at you with your gun in your lap. I have been there when they did that. It's just not okay.
They did that when I was there. I mean, the land grant guys showed up with their weapons and did the exact same thing. So, I mean, seeing that we've suddenly got this mass influx of guns in New Mexico is crazy. We've been a gun-toting state forever. I mean, they're in the back of pickup trucks. People are carrying them.
Let me get Michael in here real quick. I hear your point, Dan. And intimidation, while not against the law, it has its emotional impact. And I say again, people have the right to their fear and act accordingly.
So are we going to take the same? So my question, Gene, I know you want to go to Michael. I'm sorry, but my question is: are you going to take the same steps if fear and intimidation? And that's the feeling, which I'm not disagreeing with, then what are you going to do whenever there's a right to work bill and they get 50 union people in there and they let nobody else in and the union people are chanting at you and the police are all right to work people? Apparently we don't have the same intimidation factor.
Because they don't have a gun.
They don't have a gun, right.
They don't have a gun. There's a difference.
Okay.
Oh, can I jump in?
Please. Go ahead, Michael.
Yes. First of all, what happened 10, 15, 20 years ago, things have changed and threats have escalated. Threats are being made to school board members in different parts of the country. The level of threatening behavior has increased, and I think that's real clear. Second thing is that there is when somebody if you've got Tim Wirth who's saying that he has felt extremely intimidated and fearful because there were guns, I respect that. I believe that to be the case. I believe that to be true. And I do not believe, if we're supposed to be this civil society that's respectful of all people and opinions, then we need to be able to express ourselves without any fear of intimidation. I think it's an appropriate, given the times, I think it's an appropriate action. And there's also a whole lot of history here that people are unaware of as to the role that guns have played in this nation. And I'll just close by saying, people would say that's how the West was won. And as Native people, there's been a price, and some of us are well aware of that history, a history of genocide in which weaponry was directed at our communities and our people. And that's one of the reasons I'll just say there's so many of you and so few of us. And if you don't believe that, look at study some history and you'll understand that better. So guns do not have, there are many places in the country today where guns should never be allowed to, and the legislature is certainly one place, schools are another, and I'll leave it at that.
That's right. I say again, this legislature is slow to the trigger on this. We have not been, Inez, about it, but Republican opponents, some folks want to hang this on Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham. Is there any bounds for her on this decision? I mean, doesn't seem like she was part of this push.
The Capitol is run, as Dan said, by the Legislative Council, and that's their call. And, 30 other states already do this. I am sad personally because if people weren't idiotic enough to take weapons where they don't need to be, I wouldn't have to walk through a metal detector starting, in December.
Right.
And I love the Roundhouse being open, and it's just an incredible space as a public citizen to be able to go see your legislator at work without having to any of the hassle that you get in the Capitol and other buildings in Washington. So this is because people are not practicing proper decorum. Guns have a role in people's lives. We have a Second Amendment. I have spent my summer target shooting as a way to meditate because it's a really concentrated task where you think about only that. So I have no problem with anyone's ownership of guns. I do think that you use them when you're going shooting. You don't use them to show that you have them or that you're there to protect the world from something that doesn't need protection. It makes no sense.
Hey, Daniel, after last year's session entirely remotely because of COVID-19, some lawmakers said some practices are going to continue. We're moving to a place where the halls of government literally off limits to the public. And what impact will that have long term?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a definite, it's funny to watch how the battle works, right? I mean, at first it was all the smoky back rooms. Then there was this big fight for transparency. So then everybody started publishing everything and printing everything. And then, the information became overwhelming and people didn't know how to go get it all. And so then we went through the whole deal where we had legislators remember we're going to live stream this committee meeting. I don't care what they say, we went to live streaming and, pretty soon, I mean, now I think the days of walking through the Capitol and getting to know your legislator may be far gone. I will say that may not be a bad thing, though.
Why?
I mean, the more that these guys are at home, I could tell you from not only my own personal experience, but dealing with other legislators, you go down to somebody's hometown and meet Representative so-and-so. Lots of times they were far different in that hometown than they were during the 60 days in Santa Fe.
Thank you.
And I've always said it may be better to have them have to go out every day to the grocery store, pick their kids up from school in their local town while they're going on Zoom meetings and voting than it is to go up to Santa Fe and live for 60 days and be wined and dined by everybody who makes you think you're important. And then you go home. I was always grounded quickly. My wife would remind me that as the most powerful man in the legislature, it was time to take out the trash and mow the yard. So you would get humbled very quickly when you got home.
Yep.
That might do us some good in politics if people are humbled and show a bit of humility on a daily basis instead of outside of the 60 and 30-day sessions.
Good points there. That's all the time we have for that issue, but we'll see how it all works out when lawmakers take up redistricting sometime next month. Not too far off. Up next on the line, the state moves ahead with plans to vaccinate kids against COVID-19.